11th grade. We are in your literature books on page 10. At the top of page 10, there is The Pioneer's Home by Currier and Ives. That's from the Gallery of American Art. It says Nathaniel Currier and James Merritt Ives are known for their lithographs of 19th century America, depicting a large range of scenes from American life. Currier and Ives' prints became popular to display in homes and now give us a record of the history and people of that time period. Y'all see that? So we're going to read from the Portland Declaration by Erik von Kuehnelt-Leddihn. Erik von Kuehnelt-Leddihn was an Austrian novelist and prominent European scholar. This essay includes a number of ideas he presented at a private conference given by the Western Humanities Institute in Portland, Oregon in May of 1981. The free world today is menaced not only by hostile armies, but by sets of ideas which either reduce man to a purely materialistic animal or present a philosophy of doubt, if not despair. The effect of these ideologies, if they are not opposed, must be to crush us, or at least to undermine our will to resist. The free world has to rise to this challenge and declare a firm, coherent, and consistent belief in its values well grounded and anchored in a great tradition, for which we ought to be ready to make sacrifices, to fight even, if necessary, to die. Such a belief might be called a philosophy, a worldview, or indeed an ideology. Whatever we call it, we cannot hope to survive without it. Webster's Second International calls ideology under 4b a systemic scheme of ideas about life. Outstanding thinkers on both sides of the Atlantic have insisted that man, for better or worse, is an ideological creature distinguishing himself from the beast by having, beside reason and religion, a coherent and logical view interpreting his personal and social existence. Yet since for many this comprehensive view tends to be incoherent and indistinct, traditional thinkers in the free world have a duty to give it a more precise profile, form, and color. Carefully though, what can be said critically about utopias can also be stated about ideologies. As concrete visions set in the future, they can be thoroughly unrealistic, achievable only by unreasonable sacrifices out of all proportion to their value to mankind, or they can be legitimate goals. Finally, we must have before us a guiding vision of what our state and society could be like to prevent us from becoming victims of false gods. The answer to false gods is not godlessness, but the living God. Hence, our ideology must be based on the living God, but it should appeal also to men of goodwill who, while not believers, derive their concepts of a well-ordered life, whether they realize it or not, ultimately from the same sources we do. 1. It is self-evident that this immensely complex universe cannot possibly be the result of billions of coincidences or chances, that it must have a creator-designer, a supreme architect. He who is the eternally existing master of this world has complete power over the universe, its laws, and its material existence. He is the Lord over life and death, the Father of creation. 2. Of all his creatures, so far as we can reasonably know, only man has an understanding, an appreciation, an ability to evaluate everything he perceives, morally, aesthetically, materially. Man can put everything to use, since everything to him is meaningful in some way, even suffering. A lion, to cite an instance, is to him aesthetically significant. Its fur is commercially exploitable. Tamed, it accepts the superiority of man and can become his companion. As game, it might bring excitement or fear. A rock, a painting, a toothache, a sunset, a piece of coal, a poisonous plant, nothing is devoid of meaning to man, to whom perhaps not only the earth, but also the universe has been given in stewardship as a terrible responsibility. Therefore, man, a fallen, great, but imperfect creature, must also know his limits. The Tower of Babel should be our warning. 3. For these reasons, It is not surprising that man, created originally in the image of God, is even after the fall a creature unlike the beasts, a transcendent creature called upon to rise above himself. Man is more than just man. His personal drama cannot be terminated by his physical death, and the pagan existentialist claim that life on this globe is in itself absurd is perfectly justified. He lives in a world which is God's, man's, and Satan's, and where, within the limits of time and space, justice as well as personal fulfillment can at best be fragmentary. Man's existence is basically tied to God, normally by the binding forces of a religion. He addresses himself to God most frequently by prayer. He finds himself bound by moral commands based on God's word, made known to him by revelation. Reason, intuition, and grace are the avenues to an invisible but traceable, almighty and omniscient God, whose humble partners we are in the drama on earth. And here let us keep in mind, if there is no personal God, everything is permissible. And if God exists, everything is possible. 4. The word person comes from the Etruscan fersu, which meant the mask worn by an actor, and therefore the distinct role he had to play on the stage, signifying also our uniqueness and our untransferable destiny. Everybody is indispensable. Everybody is irreplaceable, however insignificant he or she may be. This uniqueness implies inequality as well as diversity. Our holy scriptures nowhere speak about equality, since we are different in every respect, physically, intellectually, morally, spiritually. We are unequal also in the eyes of God, who values the saint more than the inveterate sinner, Abel more than Cain. Our talents differentiate us as much as our efforts, our sex as much as our age group, our wisdom as much as our experience. We all equally share qualities, but not in an equal amount. Adverbial equality is not factual equality. 5. We share with the beast a craving for sameness and gregariousness, which makes us desire the company of people our own age, sex, race, creed, political conviction, class, and taste. But it is exclusively human to have a thirst for diversity, i.e., to be happy in the company of those who are different from us in every respect, as well as to travel, to enjoy other foods, to hear other tunes, see other plants, beasts, and landscapes. The delight in the variations of creation distinguishes man from beast as much as religion or reason. Page 12. 6. It is the low drive for sameness and the hatred of otherness that characterizes all forms of leftism, which inevitably are totalitarian because, defying the divine diversity of the universe, these ideologies want to convert us by force to sameness, sameness being the brother of equality. The leftist vision enjoins uniformity, the nation with one leader, one party, one race, one language, one class, one type of school, one law, one custom, one level of income, and so forth. Since nature provides diversity, this deadening sameness can be achieved only by brute force, by leveling, enforced assimilation, exile, genocide. All forms of totalitarianism, all leftist ideologies, reaching their culmination in the French, Russian, and German revolutions, have gone that way, with the aid of the guillotine, gallows, gas chambers, and gulag. 7. Right is right and left is wrong. On the right are the person, freedom, spirituality, organically grown institutions. On the left are the double-headed leviathan of state and society, conformity, uniformity, equality, and slavery. In all languages, the Germanic, Romance, Slavic, and Altaic tongues, Sanskrit, Hebrew, and Japanese, right has a positive, left a profoundly negative implication. The Bible does not differ in this respect and transcends even anatomic facts. Ecclesiastes 10:2 says succinctly, "The heart of the wise man beats on his right side, the heart of the fool on his left." Thus we have every right in the light of language and tradition to stick to our semantics. 8. God has created man and woman, and scientific research in the last 30 years has revealed more psychological and biological differences than had been assumed in earlier times. Men and women are equally important. They are spiritually equal. They have mental characteristics which are never exclusively male or female, but they represent, in the light of statistics, existentially different forms of mankind with different, though sometimes overlapping, tasks. The traditional role of women in our civilization is basically the result of experience and accumulated wisdom. Its accent is on love, affection, life-giving, child-rearing, all immensely important, priceless, and irreplaceable activities. But the extraordinary careers and achievements of individual women, rulers, writers, artists, doctors, lawyers, business executives, civic organizers, indicate that beside their nature-given roles, they should not be excluded from other careers, although certain activities are in contradiction to their nature and detrimental to their dignity, those of the coal miner, shock trooper, or hangman, for instance. 9. The family is the living cell of every society. It is based on affection, loyalty, and a specific type of friendship rather than on erotic infatuation or mere sexuality. It is ideally an association of two sexes and 3 generations. Unity and variety are its keynotes. Sex, eros, procreation, education, character formation, and mutual aid are its basic tasks. It offers fulfillment to the patriarchal and matriarchal drives. State and society must avoid all policies harmful to the family's integrity and autonomy. 10. Society has a composite character and must beware of 2 dangers: of becoming totally one with state, as happened in rather oppressive Greek polis, and of developing a conformist herd spirit, destroying originality, hampering the development of the person, and thus creating a totalitarianism of its own through horizontal rather than vertical pressures. A healthy society is not a monolith, but a natural organism of many layers with different functions, all necessary and indispensable, needing, respecting, and also loving each other, each with its own pride, its own characteristics, its own functions. This, however, does not imply a closed but an open society, without a caste system and with free movement from layer to layer. Talent, achievement, dedication, personal discipline, character must be honored. Envy, group arrogance, resentment, lack of charity are cancers in the body of a society, but the formation of elites in constant process of crystallization and elimination ought to be encouraged. There is no healthy society without leadership, without guiding lights. And if these are of a negative order, the whole society will decay and collapse. Neither caste societies nor classless societies have been productive for any length of time. It should, however, be remarked that society no more than the state should ever become an absolute. Socialism, which inevitably results in statism, tries to make society absolute also. Nor should society, in the sense of human environment, be made into an alibi for moral faults. The fairy tale that man by nature is good and that only society can make him wicked must be rejected. We are called upon to make our stand against all collectivist forces and powers, be they political, social, or economic. 11. The state is partly the result of man's frailties and incompleteness. It cannot be dispensed with, but neither should it be deified and made an end in itself. Its job is to protect all persons against an overpowerful society, against evil individuals or groups, and against the foreign enemy. It represents the bone structure of the nation. Its legitimacy rests primarily on authority, and owing to the fallen nature of man, also on power. Within its domain, there should be as much freedom as feasible, as much force as necessary. All free nations are by definition authoritarian in their political as well as in their social and even in their family life. We obey out of love, out of respect, for the greater knowledge and wisdom of those to whom we owe obedience, or because we realize that obedience is in the interest of the common good, which, needless to say, includes our own interest. These motivations are not mutually exclusive. For the ruler or for our parents, we might have love and respect. So also for our teachers. The manager might be respected rather than loved. To obey the traffic policeman makes sense. There is only one alternative to authority, which is lodged in us and is therefore an interior power, and that is fear, which comes from the outside. We then conform merely because we fear brute force. Fear is the lifeblood of tyranny. A society which lives by fear alone is an unnatural society and an unnatural state. Yet we must never forget that owing to man's fallen nature, the state has the right, even in a free country, to use fear and punishment, not as daily fare, but as a medicine, as a necessary sanction. 12. The state is always in danger of morbidly multiplying its cells, of assuming functions which properly belong to the person, the family, or to society. Society also can occasionally encroach on personal rights. Whatever a person can do, he or she should do. The next step would be to turn to the family and then to the community. Only finally should the state be asked for aid, and the central power of the state asked only as the very last resort. This is called the principle of subsidiarity. Therefore, it should also be understood that the ideal state is a federated state composed of political units with far-reaching autonomy, states in the American sense, Länder in German, regions or provinces in French. Regions as well as persons have a unique value. Regions are often a more organic unit with a sharper profile than a big state. The gigantic centralizing provider state, wrongly called the welfare state, takes over all functions of life with its inherent drive toward an increasing and swollen bureaucracy, and turns, in the words of Alexis de Tocqueville, men into timid animals bereft of all initiative, thus weakening the fiber of every nation to a deadly degree. A great catastrophe. History has them always in store for us, then leaves the people unable to rise again. Wow. Now, take out a sheet of paper and complete questions 1 and 2 at the bottom of page 13. See you in class.